Whether it be the sandy dunes of Zone 2 or the underground caves of Zone 4, Biomes will define our adventure in Hytale. With multiple worlds and a cloud of mystery still hanging over the game, we wanted to know what you guys think. My name is Codiak, and today we'll dive into nearly 900 responses to the question, what biome would you like to visit, and what are their defining features? Designed for comfort, built for performance, the Onyx gaming headset combines the best of both worlds. Forget the flashing lights, the Onyx headset is all about quality. Enjoy high-fidelity audio and all the features you want as a gamer. Pluggable performance. Immerse yourself in the game. Now, depending on what survey video you watch, you may have picked up on the fact that we can't present the information the same way every time. In this video, it would be impossible to lump all your ideas together and wow you with some impressive numbers. So instead, we're going to break down the video into a few parts and talk about the most practical zones and the most imaginative zones, and the zones that just wowed us from top to bottom. As always, you guys went above and beyond to share your creative visions for Hytale, and while we can't get every single response into the video, know that we had an absolute blast looking through all the entries. So let's start with the most practical ideas from the survey, the zones that don't stretch the imagination too far, but are detailed enough to give us a strong sense of belonging in a game like Hytale. One of the more frequent responses in the survey was a fully realized mountainous zone that stretched high into the sky. Long winding paths along the sides of cliff faces would provide players with safe passage through the zone, but more adventurous spirits would be able to take advantage of parkour shortcuts to quickly travel across the zone. The mountain passes would only be one feature of the zone, and observant players would quickly notice caves dotted across the valley that would lead to a vast network of caves. One response even hinted at a massive underground city under the mountains that could provide players with a new hub for trade, travel, and adventure. From what I can tell, a lot of these responses stem from a lack of mountains in Minecraft. I saw the same concerns pop up over and over again, that the mountains felt random and never fully captured the essence of adventure that are usually associated with mountainous zones. The biome itself would be home to a number of rugged and sometimes fantastical creatures like the griffin, which has popped up time and time again in our survey results. Throughout the years, we've seen griffins in a variety of games and portrayed a number of ways, but I can see the mythical creature fitting nicely in the Hytale universe. Whether or not they make it into the base game, I'm trusting that one of you modders out there will make these creatures come to life. Now, another great idea that popped up in the survey was a floating biome high in the sky. Giant islands would be connected by chains, and players would have to traverse a network of smaller islands before reaching more prominent locations. I saw one idea that suggested the biome be filled with Greek god-inspired architecture. Think of giant white columns of marble. For me, personally, I always think back to my experience with BioShock Infinite, and the first time I got to run around the cloud city of Columbia. Not only was this a groundbreaking environment rarely attempted in a video game, but the unique setting gave the developers the ability to stretch their imagination with things like the skyhook, which gave players the ability to ride along suspended trolley lines. A floating biome would also give the same opportunity to the developers, who would be able to create a host of new enemies and NPCs to fit the theme of that zone. Flying creatures and machines would have an origin point and then would make more sense in other parts of the world. Because the biome wouldn't exist on the same plane, there's enough isolation that crossing over elements would be more impactful and unique. For example, a Chork from Zone 1 wandering into Zone 2 wouldn't really give us much pause, but a creature from the floating biome appearing in an existing zone would make us stop and question what was going on. It's that distance that creates some unique and interesting situations, and an idea I really enjoyed reading about. To round out this section, I wanted to talk about one of the ideas that really captured my attention and imagination. As a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings universe, I couldn't help but think about the incredible scenes that took place in the dense forests across Middle-earth. We've seen some imagery of forests in Hytale, but thinking back to some of the scenes in the Hobbit trilogy really got me thinking how cool a dark and gloomy forest biome could be. Most of you know that I come from a World of Warcraft background, and in that universe, Duskwood is a perfect example of what I had in mind. A bleak color palette could set the tone for the zone, and with some basic understanding of the Void, you can start to imagine cultists and void creatures lurking around every tree trunk. Now I will say that Zone 3 already has a muted color palette and the forested zone does look rather bleak, but without walking around in the biome myself, it's hard to put too fine a point on it. A dense forest zone could also house an elf-based faction, which is something a lot of you have been asking about in the surveys and around the Hytale community. Forest and elves go hand in hand and have been a fixture of our imagination for some time thanks to the works of Tolkien and other fantasy writers. Now, there's always opportunities for games to subvert our expectations and put a new twist on something like a faction, and the Hypixel team has already shown that they don't want things to just be like every other game, so there's no telling what new surprises await us as we get closer to the beta. Next up, I wanted to talk about some of the fantastical ideas you had for biomes, the places that stretch the boundaries of imagination. One idea suggested there be a mushroom-based biome filled with a hive mind faction. To be honest, the idea of a hive mind is pretty interesting. Usually we see that sort of behavior with bug factions because it most closely relates to something in the real world we can wrap our heads around. If we take this idea one step further, an entire fungi-themed biome would be really unique, and although somewhat disgusting, would be a completely new experience for a lot of players. Above-ground features could make use of a vibrant color palette to mimic the fungi colors of the real world. Similarly, larger-than-life prefabs could range from oversized mushrooms the size of trees to colorful grottos filled with bioluminescent features. It's a clever idea, and although unlikely to ever make it into the base game, we can't really forget the modders that could make these fantasies turn into a reality. Now, this next idea comes straight out of the game Rainworld, but honestly, it's a pretty awesome idea and one I've seen in a number of other games and movies. Imagine a biome filled with garbage, the thrown-away technology of a forgotten age. A biome of this nature is so off the charts based on everything we've seen in the game so far, but it's definitely worth examining. The natural chaos of the biome would provide an interesting backdrop for the introduction of new factions and lore elements. A biome filled with scrap would invite scavengers from all over the world, and that could lead to some pretty interesting quests and encounters. With so much flexibility, the possibility of prefabs could stretch as far as the imagination, from large heaps of teetering trash to crashed ships that act as makeshift refuges for bandits and pirates. Moreover, a trash biome could house a ton of lore secrets, and whether it be about the history of Orbis or a specific faction, you can make pretty much anything fit the mold of this biome. It's a fascinating idea and one I hope sees the light of day either in the base game or in a mod. To end this section, I thought we'd head underground to one of the most twisted ideas from the survey. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it was really hard to lump answers together because outside of the standard requests like forests, deserts, and mountains, a lot of the ideas were unique. One thing that did pop up more often than I expected was the idea of a hell-themed biome filled with molten rock and twisted creatures. Now, I'm not one for overly creepy things, but I do understand the appeal of a demonic playground that features a wide variety of evil creatures. With the popularity of games like Doom, it's no wonder these types of zones pop up in video games across the spectrum. A demonic biome could also provide players with a sort of challenge that only hardcore adventurers would be interested in. When I think of hell, I think of an extreme evil, and that could translate into the most extreme challenge within the game. I can't help but think of Terraria, which features the underworld, the biome players reach after digging to the deepest parts of the game. That zone is filled with demonic creatures and features a lot of the things you guys requested: molten lava, a reddish color palette, and of course, demons. While I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility in Hytale, we've already seen the Hypixel team lean more towards the Void as a supreme evil, and I'll still bet that Zone 6, which is under wraps, will feature some sort of void land filled with Hytale's version of demonic creatures. I loved reading through these survey results. The amount of creativity and details you guys put into your responses is just fantastic. You know I say this as much as possible, Hytale is more than just a game. It's a platform where people with the skills and ambitions can create just about whatever they want. If we didn't get to share your idea for a biome, be sure to leave us a comment in the section below and let us know what worlds you want to explore in Hytale. And don't forget, you can always join me and the rest of the Game Gurus community on Discord. To join, check out the link below. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at the Game Gurus, thanks for watching and play on.